Listen to this episode if you feel lots of fear around your business, whether that be going all in or the money or your actions that you're taking, the judgment, the rejection, whatever that might be. I just want to have a really raw and real and honest conversation about fear in business today. I don't really have notes. I'm really just going to kind of speak from the heart. I haven't done one of these pep talk episodes in a long time, but I really just want to provide some perspective here and provide some information, tell you how I feel around fear in business, because newsflash, everybody is afraid in business at some point. And so I really just want to open up this conversation today. We are going to chat about it in our free community, the Small Business Cafe. Feel free to click the link in the show notes and we can really open up about your exact fears. Feel free to do that. But we're really going to talk about it here today as well. It's just, what does this really look like for people? Is it normal? What do we need to do about it? And is this something that we can get through? How do we process it? And all of that. Before we dive in, I just want to take 10 quick seconds to say hello. My name is Madison Page. I am a business growth specialist. If you're new here, I like to teach in a fun conversational type of way. I help turn product-based business owners from a small business into a brand so you can really meet that full potential that you have been looking for. One thing about business is it's scary. There's a reason that not everybody builds a business. There's a reason that not everybody's successful in business. There's a reason that so many people out there have these dream business ideas that they never fulfill, that they never even chase, that they never go all in on. And that's because they just are afraid. And again, whether that be a financial fear, whether that be a judgment fear, a rejection fear, a fear of success, a fear of what would happen, a fear of not being enough, or an imposter syndrome of being like, is this even something that can happen for somebody like me? Or, what happens if I go all in and nothing works, or whatever. There's so many different types of fears when it comes to business, but just know that whatever yours is, whatever that thing that constantly pops back up, it truly is the part of you that is trying to get in the way of you breaking out of your comfort zone. If you are constantly just operating inside of your comfort zone in business, you will not be able to go to the great lengths and reach those multi-6, 7-figure goals, whatever that might be for you. If you are constantly saying, I'm going to take the safest bet, I am going to not take any risks, I'm going to hold on to my money, I'm not going to do anything too crazy, you are going to struggle to grow. If you listen to anybody that has seen a crazy level of success, what they will tell you is it's risky. What they will tell you is it's hard. What they will tell you is there are failures everywhere, and you're going to get no's, you're going to get rejections. It's just a part of it. And the reason that that's so beautiful is that so many people will take that and just allow that to be the crippling point, the bottleneck, saying, okay, I'm not willing to go further than that. But if you really want to be successful and you want to be different than the rest, and you want something bold, and you want a different life, and you want a better life than 95% of people out there, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're going to have to push through some of those fears. You're going to have to be able to notice them and push through them. And I have people in my programs all the time. They say, I just feel like, what if people don't buy this? Or, I don't really want to put my face out there because I don't want to be an influencer. I have too many friends and family following me, and I don't need them to see me do that. Or, what happens if I become successful and I make all this money? How will that change me? Will that change who I am as a person? And that's scary. People can be equally as afraid of success as they are of failure, of rejection, of the good, and they can also be afraid of the bad. And so it's really just identifying what your root cause is of your fear, because our fears are dictating so many of our decisions unless we can name them and say, I'm going to do this anyway. Unless we can name them and say, okay, no, I'm going to keep on pushing through here. So just to be honest with you, one of my bigger fears in business, I guess when I first started out as a blogger, if you know anything about my story, my family has a business. When I was running their business, I went to college. During college, I started a blog selling sustainable products online. When I was doing that, I didn't show my face on that profile for months. I did not want to be somebody. I didn't want people to perceive me. I didn't want the judgment of my friends to see that I was doing something. And it almost felt like as if I kept my face off of all of it, if nothing happened, like what was the problem? If nothing ever came of it, what would be the problem? Nobody knew it was me. It's not connected to me. I don't need to take the judgment of it. But if you also know my story, you know that nobody freaking cared about my products for a really long time. I had been doing marketing for my family's business. I was in school for marketing, and I was like, why aren't people doing this? How can I not do this? This doesn't make any sense to me. And it was because I was so afraid. This was like before influencers. I was like an OG influencer, which we were just called bloggers at the time. And I started to sell these sustainable products. And I realized like nobody was buying because they didn't have a connection with me. Why would they buy from me when they could just go elsewhere and buy similar sustainable products? I wasn't making them. I had like a marketplace of them. And so, why did they buy? Why would they choose to buy from me when they can just go find it? They could find it on Amazon if Amazon was a thing back then. Like they could go and they could find it elsewhere. Why would they buy from me? Why would they buy from me rather than other people? And I realized that they needed a relationship. They needed a connection. And so I got over myself. I said, you know what? Who cares? What are these people going to say to me if they see my face on Instagram? Oh, you're doing this thing? And I'm like, yeah, no, I actually think it's really cool. I'm excited about it. It's just a project I'm working on. Like, still, we'll see what comes of it. I was 20 years old, 18. I was like probably 18. And I was like, so who cares? Like, let me just try to do it. And it started to become more fruitful. That was the thing that allowed me from going from 0 sales to $30,000 of sales in 6 weeks. Why that was because I finally got over myself, pushed through my fear and said, all right, like I'm just ready to finally see the results here. Well, what's the worst thing that can happen? I think that's a really big question to ask yourself when it comes to fears as well. What's the worst thing that can happen? Okay, you hire somebody for $3,000 a month and you're like, yeah, that's a little beyond what I really want to pay, but I feel like they're really going to do a really great job. But okay, why don't I want to do that? That's too much. I'm not worth like that. That's not worth it. What if I don't get an ROI? What if this? What if that? You start spiraling. You ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen? You're like, well, I have to pay the 3 months or the 4 months and then I'm out. Or, I can fire them, at any time. I can end the contract at any time. That's the worst thing that can happen is that you're out $6,000 or whatever that might be for that situation. Again, you hire somebody. What's the worst thing that can happen? You fire them 6 weeks later if you don't like them. There are so many different things here that we can look at. What's the worst thing that can happen can provide a lot of perspective that if it's like, well, that's not that big of a deal, then it's just your fear driving everything. Our subconscious, which is what holds our fears, runs 95% of our decision making and our actions. So there are so many things out there that decisions that you're making, you be like checking out and procrastinating things, that could be rooted in fear. You never actually going all in on posting the 3 TikToks a day that would finally get you to that point that you really want to, might be rooted in a fear of like, okay, what if I go all in and it still doesn't work? Then what? Then what am I going to do? Then it looks like I actually tried and it didn't work and then I failed. Like that is so embarrassing. Why would I want to do that? So we have to really identify what's the root, what actions are being dictated by the root. What's the worst case scenario of really just going all in on those fears? Because our brain is wonderful and it's lovely, but it's made to keep us safe. Like there's a reason we have fight or flight, and your brain, when it hears, hey, let's go take this really bold action in business, even though it's not physical danger, it feels like emotional danger. So your brain says, no, I don't think I need to do that. Or no, I'm just going to procrastinate. No, I'm going to tell her to go look at her Instagram and scroll for an hour and a half instead of actually doing what she needs to get done. That'll actually help her get to that point. So we have to understand that the things that we're often putting off are often the things rooted in fear, and that will often be the thing that will actually take us to the next level. Because again, we know, our intuition knows, our brain knows, whatever you kind of believe in is telling you that that is going to be the thing that is going to help you. And then your fear receptors are saying, no, but that's scary. Nobody got to those big, big goals by not pushing through fears. I have been afraid of so many things in my business. I was terrified to give my TED Talk a couple of weeks ago. Truly, I don't know if I have ever been that nervous for anything. I couldn't think. My brain was going all over the place. What if I messed up? What if I did all of these things? Like, what if this happened? What if that happened? What if I fall over? What if I totally forget what I'm going to say? And I was pacing back and forth. I was nervous when I got the message. I was nervous when I got the email, when, I was kind of saying, I'm kind of that person that would stand up in front of 1,000 people and not really care about it and speak. My family ran an adventure resort when I was a kid. And so I'm just used to controlling a crowd. Not a big deal, but this had to be memorized, and it was going to be publicized to their 40 million people on YouTube and onto the app and all of these other areas. Like, holy cow, this isn't edited and it's memorized. This is really, really scary. Before I stepped up there, I was incredibly afraid, but I did it anyway. When I accepted it, I was incredibly afraid because it was one of those things that like kind of made my business a lot more legit, made my message. It was like, I was afraid leading up to it. I remember telling my fiance, what if people hear this and they tell me my message is like stupid? What if the comments on my YouTube video are just like, wow, this is so dumb? And that was my biggest fear. I was like, what if this is just opening me up to a lot more perception and like a lot more input, and I feel very safe in the input that I had? And he was like, who cares? If they say that, they say that. But like, do you really feel like it is valuable? Have you seen it be valuable for other people? Then A, nobody's going to say that. And B, what if they do? Who cares if they do? And so there were so many different pieces of this one thing that was a really big step forward and a huge accomplishment in my career. When I accepted it, I was afraid. When I submitted my final draft, I was like, what if this sucks? What if this is terrible? And I get up there and I'm like booed off the stage. Of course, that was never going to happen. Before I stepped on the screen, I was really, really scared. Another point of this that I haven't really talked about much, and it's very vulnerable, is because I would say I'm a pretty good speaker. I sit here and I speak to you guys all the time. I have like 400 hours of me speaking online in podcasts and trainings and, interviews and all sorts of different things. I speak for a living. I know I'm a good speaker. Hey, I'm jumping in here for 30 quick seconds for those of you listening and thinking, all right, but how do I actually apply this to my business? Every week here, I share strategies, case studies, growth mistakes to avoid, but your business growth is nuanced. So your business support has to be nuanced as well. That's why all of my support includes me inside of your business, your ideas, your launches, your content, perfecting what you're already building and uncovering your hidden opportunities to scale. This isn't a cookie cutter course. It's a high level personalized support system to help you optimize your brand, your strategy, and every single person your business touches. If you want my eyes and my brain on your branding, your sales, your marketing, and your overall growth plan, click the link in the show notes to apply. Let's see what we can build together. All right. I know that, but it was memorized and it was new and it was like, it felt very high risk. And they published it on YouTube and I didn't watch the video for weeks. Actually, they sent me a recording of it right after and I didn't watch it because I knew I couldn't watch it without being incredibly critical of myself. I knew that I wasn't in the headspace to watch that and like see somewhere where I messed up, because if you haven't watched my TED Talk, I know that I mess up in one or two places. And to be fair, I didn't watch it for weeks. Like after my TED Talk, it was honestly probably 6 to 8 weeks. And everybody was telling me how great it was and wow, they watched it and it was so awesome. And like, I'm so happy for you, whatever. And I was like, oh my God, like, I know that I messed up in that, all these people are watching it. My fiance's whole family watched it. Like people were watching it live. And like, I know that I messed up. And as me being me, I'm a perfectionist. That was so incredibly fear induced, was feeling like I messed up in a really big moment. Now you might watch it. You'll see me stumble on my words once or twice. Was it a big deal? No. Did I say something wrong? No. Did I fall on my face? No. Is it a big deal? No. Does it change the fact that I gave a TED Talk? No, but I was still afraid of the judgment of what other people were saying after the fact that I had already given it. I didn't even really want to share it. I was afraid to do that. But the biggest piece is that we have to change our perspective in those moments. We have to look at, okay, why did I feel so afraid? All of those things was the fear of judgment and the fear of rejection. What if people don't think that what if people don't think that I like have the authority here because I stumbled on my word when I said ideology? Why did I put the word ideology in a speech? Who knows? I was like ideology on the screen when I was, I'm shaking, I'm scared. I said ideology really weird. And that was, I like stumbled on it and then it like came out really odd. That was like my biggest stumble. And again, such a minor thing, not a big deal. Did I miss a big chunk? Did I say something kind of off? No, I just said ideology, which was probably a terrible word for me to put into a final draft anyway, when you're on stage trying to really be seamless out there. I say all of this and I share all of this to not just out myself, but I say this to tell you that everybody feels fear. I have been in business for 5 years. I have accomplished things that less than 5% of the population will ever accomplish in business, especially women entrepreneurs. And I have accomplished things and I still feel fear all the time. It's incredibly normal, but what is the most important piece and what is the biggest factor if you are going to be successful with it or not is what you do after you feel that fear. What do you do when you feel the fear? Are you doing it anyway? Or are you allowing it to cripple you? Are you allowing it to keep you where you're at? I feel fear all the time. I know that I have, my family is very thrifty. We've always been thrifty. So I know I am afraid to spend money, even if I know that there's an ROI, even if I know that I'm going to be able to use it. I'm afraid to spend money sometimes because what if, at the end of the day, all of these things can happen. There are so many what ifs in our life. Do I get over it and invest in people anyway? I've invested over $60,000 in other business support. Was I sweating through my shirt, not able to sleep for a couple of days after the first one? Yeah. The last one, not even a blink of an eye, didn't even bat an eye over, didn't lose a minute of sleep. I was confident in it and I pushed through the fear of it. I didn't have to work through that fear anymore because I knew I would get an ROI. I trusted myself enough. I heard Alex Hormozy say this once, is the only way to get over fear and imposter syndrome is to prove to yourself that that fear is not worthy and the imposter syndrome is fake and it's made up only in your own head. There are so much evidence out there of people from all walks of life that feel imposter syndrome, from the top of the top A-list celebrities to people just starting out. People feel imposter syndrome every single day, but again, they're doing it anyways. The ones that are successful still feel it, but they still star in those movies. They still show up on that runway. They're still doing the thing because they know that they have to in order to keep up and achieve the goals that they really want to achieve. So if you're listening to this and you're saying, Maddie, I am so afraid. There are so many things that I want to do. I'm afraid of never reaching my potential. I'm afraid of never achieving the goals that I want. I'm afraid of who I'll turn into if I do. I'm afraid of what my friends will say. I'm afraid of, my friends not wanting to be my friend anymore. I'm afraid of the judgment or the rejection. The first thing you have to do is name it. What is all of those fears rooted in? Name it. What is your fear? Is it rejection, failure, whatever? What is your fear? Mine, a lot of it is judgment and a lot of it is failure. I'm a perfectionist till the end of the day. All right. It's just who I am. And so a lot of mine are fear, my fear of judgment and fear of failure, because I'm a perfectionist and I like my image the way that I like it. That's just how I've been built. But I also realize where those things come up. Where do those things come up in my overall life, in my actions, in my thoughts, and the things that it's actually holding me back from. And then I make a conscious effort all of the time to do it anyway. You know what's something I've actually started doing, like exposure therapy, especially to judgment. The other day I was at church and I spilled coffee on my shirt. I could have run to the bathroom and tried to wipe it off. And I was like, no, who cares if I have coffee on my, the literal cup broke, like the top of the cup cracked and it just spilled on me when I went to drink it. Is it that big of a deal if I have a stain on my shirt? No, I didn't like the perception that it gave of me that I had this like big stain down my shirt. Is it that big of a deal? No. Am I going to die? No. So I gave myself that exposure therapy of just being judged. Did I see people look at me and like look down at my shirt and look up at me? Yeah, 100%. And that's okay. Let them judge me. What is the big deal if they think I have something on my shirt? I know that I am who I am and who really cares about it. And those are the things that we have to do. Name it, see how it's actually impacting you, do it anyway, and really try to identify how can I sink into this? How can I say, I'm going to do it anyway and I'm going to prove it to myself otherwise, in that nature too. I just wanted to sit and really have this raw and honest conversation. It's been on my heart for a while. I hear it a lot in my DMs of people being afraid. And honestly, a lot of times this conversation is people being afraid to work with me because they want to go all in on their business. They know that they really want this business to be wildly successful, but they're so afraid of it. What happens? What happens if it doesn't work for me? What happens if, I invest this money and this time and this energy and then it doesn't work? Those are all very valid fears. I would say 90 to 95% of the people I am working through fears with of like, hey, let's talk about it. But the people that I also work with and then they 10x their business in 12 months, or they're all of a sudden in anthropology 3 years later, or whatever that might be, I'm working with them. They've doubled their sales month over month for the last 3 to 4 months. If they didn't make that call, if they didn't push through that fear of the what ifs, this doesn't work, what if I can't stick to it, what if it doesn't work for me, what if I'm different, they would have never seen that, or at least it would have pushed out 5 to 10 years down the line. A lot of times it's these places where you feel the most amount of fear is actually the catalyst to your growth and the things you look back on that I'm so glad that I did it. I think that's a really important distinction to make in this episode. I am so glad I did that TED Talk, even if I still feel like, holy cow, I messed up in that video a little bit. You can go watch it on YouTube. It's out there. Yeah, 100%. I'm so glad that I did it. The things I'm so glad that I invested in the coaches that allowed me to triple my business in 6 months, that allowed me to see certain gaps that I had, people that I've invested thousands and thousands of dollars into. I have always learned something from every single fear that I have overcome. It's in the moments that you push through these things, you notice your fears and you do it anyway, that you actually start to see those big results. Because if it wasn't scary and it wasn't hard, people wouldn't do it. But if you want a life that's different than the average, if you want to achieve things that not everybody achieves, you have to do things differently. You have to do the scary things. You have to do the things that people aren't willing to do. It's just what comes of it. It's just what's necessary. Otherwise, everybody would do it. Everybody would have this life, and then it would lose the allure and it wouldn't be as incredible as you really see that it could be. I hope this was helpful for you. I would love to have this conversation with you inside of the Small Business Cafe, my free community where I can connect with you deeper about every single podcast episode. You can click the link in the show notes and join there. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always. I'll chat with you in the next episode. Tell me what you're afraid of. I want to hear what you're afraid of in the comments below. What is your fear? What was resonating with you? What is something that you've done that you've overcome from your fears as well? I hope you have a great day, and I'll chat with you soon. If you found today's episode helpful and are looking for more tangible ways to grow your business, make sure you are subscribed to the show. If you want to dive deeper into this topic more, click the link in the show notes and join our completely free podcast community where we dive into every single podcast topic, as well as give some bonus support and free coaching calls. And finally, if you are interested in getting my eyes on your business to find your hidden opportunities to scale, apply to work with me one-on-one in the show notes or on our website. Remember, it's not enough to listen. Don't forget to implement too. I love ya. I'll see you in the next episode.